Climb aboard the Marauder. We're going back into a galaxy far, far away. We're covering the premiere 2 episodes of The Bad Batch. Right after these ads, we have no control over.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Animation, deliberation, a conversation, and a celebration of our favorite action animated series. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Welcome back to Animation Deliberation. As someone who always sings along, I hope you enjoyed being as caught off guard as I just was. I am Andrew Rogers.
And I am the most trustworthy pirate you know, J Scotty St. Clair.
And we are your hosts for this lovely episode of Animation Deliberation. Like we've said, we're talking about The Bad Batch. It is so good to be back to Star Wars. It is just one of our favorite things to talk about. It is just going to be the two of us this week. Zuhair has gone off on a bounty hunting mission, but for all of you who have seriously listened the past couple weeks and mentioned his surgery, he is doing okay. He's just tired right now. Before anyone thinks there's anything wrong, he is doing fantastic. That's why we sent him off on another mission outside of this.
Yeah, thankfully his shoulder was not crushed by approximately 150 kilograms of pressure.
Ooh, that one would hurt just a little tidbit.
Yes, indeed.
So before we get into things this week, we don't have any news. We don't have any minutes, but we are going to give you a little bit of a kind of non-spoiler review for Star Wars The Bad Batch. If for some reason you haven't watched the first season yet, but you were tuning in to, listen and hear what's going on, we'll kind of give you our thoughts of the show, what we have going on for a couple minutes. Then we'll jump into the synopsis and start getting into spoilers. But if you were here, this is a good time to, listen and figure out whether or not this show is for you.
Yeah, well said. So I will kick it off by saying, I think the most praise that I can give this show without getting into any of the story beats really, and this applies to season 1 as well as what I've seen for season 2 so far. What really keeps bringing me back is the art direction of this show. It really is just breathtaking. It really feels like an ode to the artwork of Ralph McQuarrie. And I said it over and over again last season, but I know I'm going to say it again because it was just one of the first things that came to my mind when we started up this season. But there's just such a painterly quality. They really feel like the characters and the environments, they're rendered so well and with such high fidelity and detail, but it's you can see every little brush stroke, every little blemish on textures in the background, as well as on characters' skins and faces. So I am just really enjoying already being back in this world and just the sight that it is to behold.
Oh yeah, I think that's the number one thing. If you are a fan of animation, as we hope all of you are, hands down, I think the most beautiful show, possibly period. I think Mappa has a run for their money on this one. Star Wars, whatever they figured out with animation, the attention to detail, I'm amazed that we got a season under 2 years after the first season. I think it's about a year and a half to this point. And even just when you talk about attention to detail, this season they changed up the costumes, I noticed, and Hunter is wearing a little scarf. And it's not the biggest deal. It's a scarf until you watch that scarf and it is blowing in the wind in every moment. It moves every time he does. This is an anime. We're not just drawing the outfit as a whole. They are wholeheartedly putting every effort into, generating what is possibly the most beautiful animation out there. So if you like that, that's great. And then I'm also just going to switch gears and, without getting into the story, like we said, character development, Dave Filoni is known to be the master of it. Mm-hmm. Already between season 1 and 2, again, without saying too much, I feel like we're getting the character growth. He's the master of season 1. You kind of are abrasive with these characters. You're they're a little silly. I don't know if I like them. By the time season 2 has started, I'm nope, I'm on board with everything that, these characters are doing. And usually it takes them 4 seasons to do that. So already I can see the wheels are in motion for some of the best storytelling that Star Wars has to offer, because it's no secret. If you've ever listened before, Star Wars The Clone Wars is my favorite piece of Star Wars anything. That entire 7-episode series, or 7-season series, is just top tier for the storytelling that it does and the way that it just flushes out Star Wars. So if you're a fan of Star Wars, this is how you just jump in the deep end.
Yeah. Do you have any other non-spoiler spoiler thoughts, or should we just get into it now that we've gotten that out of the way?
Yeah, no, I think if we don't have you hooked yet, just still go watch it anyway. But I think I need to start getting the spoilers out there because this was a fun couple episodes.
Yeah, agreed. Right off the bat, I really appreciated the fact that we got this opening sequence on the beach that we saw in the trailer, because it really stuck out to me in the trailer how beautiful that scenery looked and the lighting. And I kind of found myself, like, when we first got the setting and saw the like waves rippling upon the shore and kind of like these mangrove trees in the background, I coming off of Avatar: The Way of Water, I was like, is a Metcaina Na'vi gonna like step out into the scene here? But yeah. You talk about character development, and that was one of the things I really liked about this 2-episode arc. I will say, I thought it was kind of interesting that they split it into 2 episodes with how connected they were. I really felt like it could have been like one just long episode as a way to kind of like kick the season off, but not a real gripe, just an interesting note there. But I really like the fact that we got to spend more time with 2 characters that I thought, they had their moments in season 2, but I thought they were relegated to a little bit more of a background role with Echo and Tech. And I'm on the record as saying Tech is my guy. So I loved getting to spend more time with him. And he's got a very dry personality, but to get a little bit more of that personality was great for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. This felt like an opening episode. The minute we saw that trailer, it was like, this feels like where we're going to start. And I loved that was exactly the opening we got. And yeah, no, I don't know how many more things I can say that you didn't already, because it is just amazing how quickly they got us in, they dragged it out, and I feel like Tech was less dry. And yeah, no, I warmed to him very quickly. Echo was always a favorite, but then even like Wrecker, again, I'm on record of saying I'm not the fan of the brutish characters that don't have intelligence. Watching him be smart enough to like take a tank apart and put it together to make another weapon, I was like, he's actually like learning things from his comrades in the same way Omega is learning things from their comrades. So there's so many layers to these characters going on, and they're just bringing us home with all of the way that they care about each other and interact with each other. They are an amazing team.
Yeah, agreed. And if it shows how excited we are, like, I completely forgot that we had like some synopses to read for these first 2 episodes. So
you just started cruising. I was like, okay, here we go. We're ready.
Hopefully that's a nice little morsel for like the opening of the episode and how we felt about some of these characters. But I'll go ahead and give us all the synopsis here to refresh my memory as much as maybe you, the listener's memory.
Yeah, I don't even think we said at the top. The episode titles were The Spoils of War and The Ruins of War. We usually say that in the opening. And again, we're just so excited to be here. I completely forgot to mention that.
All good. Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 1, titled The Spoils of War. After a tip-off by her friend Fee Genoa, Sid sends the Bad Batch to Sereno to steal part of Count Dooku's massive war chest to help finance a future of their own. After some reluctance, Hunter joins in, and the team proceeds to the planet, where the Empire is already transporting the Count's wealth off-world. While trying to secure the valuable cargo, their presence is revealed, and a battle ensues during which Omega, Tech, and Echo are trapped inside a cargo ship, preparing for liftoff. Fighting their way to a cargo container, they attempt to use its re-entry thrusters to make a safe escape landing, whilst Hunter and Wrecker try to lose their pursuers in the bombed-out ruins of the nearby city. And since these episodes are so interconnected, we'll go ahead and jump to episode 2 as well, titled The Ruins of War, which reads, the cargo container crashes on Sereno's surface. While trying to make their way back to the Marauder, Omega, Tech, and Echo meet Romar Adel. Adel? I don't know. A local who is hiding in the woods while conversing with him, the clones get a first impression of what a free life must be like. In an unattended moment, Omega sneaks out to recover more funds from the war chest. Echo and Tech go after her, resulting in a clash with the Imperial search parties, whom the three escape with Romar's help. Hunter and Wrecker fight free of their encirclement and reunite with their friends. With the confirmation of Clone Force 99's survival, Vice Admiral Rampart, fearing punishment for his failure to eliminate them, decides to keep this fact secret from Governor Tarkin by eliminating Clone Captain Wilco.
Yeah, and those were our 2 episodes. They were fantastic. We're not going to talk about them in separate form because I think there's just, it's all encompassing, like you said at the top, J Scotty. And I really thought about it more. It is interesting that they didn't just combine these, because when we got the Bad Batch premiere, it was like an hour and a half long for season 1. So I don't know why it seems like they wanted to do that again, but for some reason separated. But either way, we got them all at once. So I can't complain about what we got.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as you're jumping in though, I just want to say at the top, I'm curious what the voice acting is going to look like this season, because already in these first 2 episodes, they got some like decently named actors to appear as Fee and Romar. Those 2 characters are voiced by like not actual actors. They are all actual actors, but like noted live action actors making their way into a voice acting role. So I'm just kind of hoping, for those who aren't familiar, it's Wanda Sykes is Fee, and then Hector Elizondo. A lot of people would know him from Gary Marshall movies like Pretty Woman and Princess Diaries. He's in like all of those movies. So they're both like noted live action, and I'm just really intrigued to see where it goes. But also, it's just adding to what is already a stellar cast, because D. Bradley Baker knocked it out of the park in these 2 episodes. Like every single one of the normal clones and stormtroopers had such personality that I had to remind myself, this is one guy in a booth recording all of these roles.
Yeah, very, very important to keep in mind. It's like, it's such a feat, and he's so talented. But yeah, with Wanda Sykes voicing Fee in particular, it was kind of funny. Like I just started the episode. I didn't look at the voice cast. And at first I was like, wow, this person sounds a lot like Wanda Sykes. They're doing a very good Wanda Sykes. And it turns out it was Wanda Sykes. So she wasn't in the episode all that much, but she definitely played a pivotal role in terms of being the provider of this information about the war chest and kind of setting this adventure going forth. But I expect she'll come back. With the impression she made, and I loved her flirtation with Tech there,
with Tech.
And just for it to get squashed so quickly. Any attraction she had as soon as he started going into like the phenotypes of like clone genetics and that they all have brown eyes, she was just like, okay, not interested. But yeah, a lot of fun to have her lend her talents. And I wasn't familiar with the other gentleman, Hector Alonso.
Elizondo, I believe, is how it would be pronounced.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, not as familiar with him, but I think he definitely lended a certain pedigree and gravitas to the role of a very wizened and kind of forlorn character. So
yeah,
he did a good job.
A lot of his characters are very fatherly and, watching over in nature. And that was just the number one way that I felt immediately. The way that he interacted with Omega was just such great writing, as for like, this is just a kid who you can tell has only been through war, and this is a man who is trying to remember what life was like before the war. So to get that, dichotomy of perspectives coming together and, slowly helping without being so heavy-handed of like, oh, I gotta go help him fight. Like it felt natural. It felt like they actually stumbled upon such a friendly man in the woods, who I felt weird though didn't ever offer to like splint Tech's leg. We joked at the top about the amount of force put on that. It takes a lot to break a femur, and Tech was just like, walk it off, let's go.
Well, that's when I gained like a whole new respect for Tech. And I mean, I already respected the guy, but this is a heightened fantasy world with Star Wars, and I know they have back to tanks and ways to recover more quickly from grievous injuries than we do. But yeah, the fact that he mustered up and did what he had to do. And like Romar kind of like told him, you're not going to make it far in your current condition. And Tech just kind of says he'll manage. And there were a couple moments where I was pretty scared for him, but yeah, he is. Don't be mistaken, he's a badass.
They are the Bad Batch for a reason.
Yeah,
Oh, that was awful.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I'll allow it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but we got that great character development on the side of Tech and Echo, but also Hunter and leading this charge for the group. It seems I don't know where the season is going to go, and I don't really want to speculate, but I already just love the direction of, are we fighting in the war? Are we adjacent to the war? Should we be getting involved at all? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be layers to this onion that we're slowly peeling apart, because to have Hunter of all people be like, nah, I don't want the money. Like, we can survive without it, when he's been leading them to like get every possible like better part of their lives, was it seems like there's already going to be some tensions.
Yeah, between him and Echo particularly, Echo seems to be like the voice that's really kind of rallying, like we're not doing enough. We really need to be going up against the Empire in more of a head-on way. So yeah, I agree. I will be interested to see how that particular plot line unfolds and what it might mean for, infighting within the Bad Batch itself. We've already lost Crosshair, and I was a
Mm-hmm.
little surprised that he didn't appear at all in these first two episodes, but I imagine it's only a matter of time before we check in with him and see what he's got going on. But in terms of Hunter, it's an interesting thing. Like, I understand he has to play the role of like the responsible one, the one that's really acting as a father figure for Omega and really looking out for her. While Romar, did have opportunities to provide some fatherly and sage advice for her, as well as the other clones. Um, in these first two episodes, I thought he kind of, I don't know, he was the most boring to me, and it's like,
Yes.
I don't want to take away from him too much, but it's like on the surface, like he should be my favorite character. He's got the knives. He's like, he's got the ex, ex the sense abilities. He's got heightened awareness. So like he should be my favorite, but his personality is just kind of like shining through the least and compared to the other ones. Like Wrecker, he's the comic relief. He's great. Uh, but yeah, I kind of found myself like, come on, Hunter. When they like, I think Sid called him like dark and brooding, and uh, yeah, that's all he really gave me in these two episodes. That was fitting.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's one of those, like, I don't even know if I want to talk about him too much, because we only got two episodes.
Yeah, sure,
I'm gonna like, I know we're all gonna get our time in the sun, or at least I hope they
sure,
kind of learned
sure.
that from the first season after relegating Tech and Echo. Like, okay, let's give everyone their moments, not just Hunter. And I think that might be why it feels so off. It's because
Mm,
he was at the forefront of season one. Like, every decision, every moment was pretty much going through Hunter. So
true.
now we have to let the other children shine, I suppose.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, sounds about right.
but then I feel like I want to know how much time has passed between last season and this season, because it
Mm,
seems like Omega has gotten bigger,
yeah.
has definitely like aged up and matured a little in the way they look,
Hmm.
as well as, I mentioned it at the top, outfit change. One of my favorite things that animators do is taking the time to redesign an entire character model. Like, that's no easy feat for them to
Yeah,
just do that from the ground up. But I also am
yeah,
curious, like, okay, who was the one that said, nah, we're not doing the black and white anymore. I want blue and like some hints of orange hanging out in the suits. Like, at what point did they decide they needed the paint job? But also, again, I know it's meant to show the passage of time. At least give me a
sure.
little, okay, how long has it been? What are we actually looking at? Because the Empire as a entity seemed to be much more established at this point.
Certainly, yeah. It's a good question, and I found myself looking to the because I guess they are stormtroopers now. I found myself looking to their armor, and I was like, okay, we haven't had the full helmet change to the
Right.
stormtrooper outfit. It's still kind of reminiscent to what we saw in episode 3. So that makes me think that not that much time has passed. But I agree with everything you said about like the Bad Batch themselves, their outfits. I love the new hints of color. I have to imagine that's a way not only to incorporate a little bit more stealth, but just to differentiate themselves from their enemies now. But and certainly part of it is the fact that the armor is just becoming more weathered. Like they don't get to go to a nice facility every time they run a mission and get and polish their stuff and be issued new gear. They kind of have to stick with what they've got. So it tells a story in itself that way.
So we talk about the passage of time, the stormtroopers changing. My one wish, can we see Crosshair in a TIE fighter? Because we haven't seen a TIE fighter in this show yet. If anyone's going to be flying a TIE fighter, I want it to be him.
Yeah.
Because TIE fighters are just also one of my favorite ships, because it's just so like small and nimble. So let's just throw Crosshair in one and watch him go for it.
Well, and that TIE fighter like scream, that sound effect when a TIE fighter comes into frame, like that is just iconic Star Wars right there. But I actually am glad that you brought it. You mentioned the ships, because that's something I did want to say. Like one thing I noticed in these two episodes is like, as much as the stormtroopers are their enemies now, they're still making a concentrated effort not to kill unnecessarily. Like they've always got their gun set to stun, which puts them at a disadvantage a lot of times. But when it comes to like aerial combat, I guess anything goes at that point, because they did not hesitate to shoot down like many ships. And it's just like, okay, if you were a pilot, sorry, that's your lot in life. There's not a lot we can do for you there.
I was honestly thinking that through the whole first episode of like, oh, they're stunning, it's fine. And then Wrecker gets a cannon and it's over. I'm like, oh, okay, they're lethal now. That's what's happening, because there's no way you're non-lethally shooting a cannon at anyone.
Yeah.
But that, and then you say, shooting down pilots, that scene of the like ship getting shot and spiraling down as the camera followed it into the mountains. It felt like the same scene from Rogue One. Like we talk about the animation quality, and it felt like it was that same level as that live action. It had the same impact. It had the same explosion. And yes, technically that is not live action because it's CG, but it's the fact that they're using the same level of detail when it's supposed to look real as opposed to not supposed to look real amazes me.
Yeah, and I think a big contributing factor to kind of bringing that cinematic quality as well is where they choose to place the camera. It's done in a very filmmaker type way, which just shows how much Dave Filoni and his team have really grown as creators. And I have to imagine, his experiences on the live action Disney Plus shows and kind of like being under Jon Favreau's wing, he's taken some of that and has been able to implement that into these new series like this. So I love to see it. But I can't let this segue pass by, because we were talking about the lethality and the way episode 2 ended with Rampart taking out Wilco. This is a very family-friendly show. It's got action. It's got these big heightened moments where you actually fear for the characters. But that was a pretty intense moment. And just seeing Wilco's body like fall, like it wasn't, too intense or gratuitous to where you saw him get shot at point blank range. But seeing his body just kind of fall over the edge, though, was very, very dark. And I kind of had to appreciate the fact that this commander's name was Wilco, which is short for will comply. And what got him killed is the fact that he was not willing to comply. So that's irony there for you.
That's a good catch. But just the raw mix of duty being done and then seeing Vice Admiral Rampart, like he knew what he had to do. He's like, I can't let Tarkin find out. But he still wasn't heartless about it. After they cut back to him and he had just shot Wilco, you could see that it wasn't sitting well with him. He had that moment of like, okay, I did what I had to do, which it is interesting, because at first I was like, wow, you're just going for straight how to hate the bad guy, have him kill a good guy in front of you. But there is that, I like having that extra layer of it not just being so mustache twirly that like, oh, I can't let the dark side. I can't let my guy above me find out, or he's going to be disappointed and get a new Padawan, like that nonsense. It's still like, okay, there's a purpose to why it's happening, and there's emotion behind why it's happening.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I did see, and that just goes to, again, to speak to the quality of the show. It is done in a certain style to where they don't look, when a character is wearing armor, that's where it really starts to kind of become indistinguishable, especially from like the prequel era where George Lucas like relied very heavily on computer generated imagery. But then once a character removes their helmet and you see the facial features, that's where it's like, okay, this is an animated, stylized show. But even with that being the case, just the amount of emotion and the hesitation and kind of the reservations you saw all in the split second kind of go across Rampart's face. Like, yeah, I did appreciate it. Definitely made him less mustache twirly, as we say. So yeah.
Yes, and I think it did a very good job of setting up that there's going to be multiple stories to this season and threads to pull on by giving us that cliffhanger, because without that, I think it would have felt very bottle episode, and this at least is giving us what feels like greater direction, which I'm always for.
Yeah, and this is just the beginning. It's going to be, at least one episode of Bad Batch every week from here on out until March 29th. And I will say this premiered yesterday, which was my birthday, so it was a nice little birthday present for me to get to revisit the the Clone Force 99 and the world of Star Wars. Like, coming off of Andor, like it feels like Star Wars has this awesome synergy again, and I'm definitely excited for so many things, including Star Wars Visions, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Oh yes, more Star Wars Visions, please give it to us. That was so good. But yeah, as it feels like we're winding down, I am going to jump in here and say, J Scotty just mentioned we have one episode a week of this show coming from now until sometime in March.
29th. Yeah.
29th. Thank you. We also, this week upcoming, have My Hero Academia starting back up. So just kind of give you a little peek behind the curtain. You may notice our episodes get a little shorter, but that is because we're going to be doing 2 a week for the foreseeable future to try and squeeze into our usual time slot. We're going to do one for Bad Batch, one for My Hero. Sometimes they might cross over, who knows, but just to give you all the heads up, we're going to be doing as much as we can, but January is going to be slammed because Vox Machina, I'm staring at on my monitor, is coming January 20th, and I know all of us are excited for that. So it's just going to be a fun rotation around the horn. We thought October was bad. I think January is actually going to be worse.
Hey, we're learning, we're growing, we're adapting, we're evolving. So hopefully you'll enjoy some episodes that might be a little more digestible. But one thing I will say is we will always make time for listener feedback. So if you are watching The Bad Batch, if you are watching any of the cavalcade of shows that we're going to be covering and watching ourselves in January, please chime in with your thoughts and opinions. Andrew, you want to let them know where they can do that at?
Yeah, of course. You can email us, as always, at animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com. You can either write to us there or send in a voice memo. We are happy to play any of your thoughts on the show. You can also follow us on all of our social medias and DM us there. Instagram and Facebook, Animation Deliberation, and Twitter, Animation Delib1. And if you want to know what it's like to hear, listener feedback, what it feels like to be a part of this community. Also coming later this week, we have our New Year's special. Unfortunately, you won't be able to write in and give us the feedback on that, but that episode is going to be full of listener feedback as for what they loved about 2022, what they're looking forward to in 2023, as well as your hosts, what our thoughts are on all of those matters as well, to wrap up the year now that we're a part of 2023. But that's just a little taste of how it could go. So yeah, any of you wanting to write in, you can do that and listen there.
Do it.
Do it.
Okay. Well, this was a great first episode for the new year, 2023. We are a proud member of the Stranded Panda Network, so check out the Stranded Panda chat on Facebook. Check out all the other shows we've got going on there: Star Wars Universe Podcast, Bingers Assembled, Source Pages, Marvel Cinematic Universe, of course. Marvel
Yes,
Cinematic Universe podcast. Of course, I often do that. I forget the podcast part of that.
forget that we have a podcast. And as our co-host is not here, I will give the plug for him. We talk about New Year's specials. He's not going to be on our New Year's special, unfortunately. We'll give him a little ration for that. But he was on the Source Pages podcast New Year's special to wrap up everything on the Marvel side of things from a comics and film perspective. So you can also listen to him over there.
Cool. All right. Well, that'll do it from me this week. Thank you for tuning in. That's TOONIN.
Stay whelmed, and as always, muscle.
And may the force be with you always.
Dun, 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 dun.
Thank you for listening to the Animation Deliberation Podcast, a proud member of the Stranded Panda Network. If you would like to contact us, you can email animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @animationdelib1. For this and other great shows, you can visit strandedpanda.com or join the great community that is the Stranded Panda Chat Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/svchat. Tune in next time, and remember, stay whelmed.